Let's give a big round of applause to our speaker, Mr. John Palumbo.
Everybody knows that song, don't they? Even the kids know what that is. So, good morning. You know, he mentioned, just sort of serendipitously, that I speak, how many? 5 languages. Who recognizes this one? Bonjour. Francais. Buenos dias. Buenos dias. Who said Mexican? It's Spanish. It's Spanish. Calamera. Greek. You know, we got the Greek festival going here this week, so hopefully you get a chance to go to it. How about this one? Buonasera, Italian, and of course, good day, mate. That's Australian. You know, here's what he didn't say. They only speak 2 words of all those languages, but it's enough to get me by, and if you travel, you learn those 2 words. You know, I told that to my daughter, and she said, Dad, that's kind of ridiculous. So she said, I'm going to learn French. And she's been at it for 2 years now, and so far, she's only learned 2 words. Louis Vuitton. So with that, her language skills haven't gotten much better at mine. But this morning, I want to share with you concepts straight from the field. Straight from the field. So what I talk to you about is not theory. It's not hopes and promises of what could happen. But if somebody, you know, anybody in the back would grab a glass of water, I can feel my throat getting really dry. It would be great because I know I'm going to need one in a few minutes. Thank you. But these ideas and concepts are going to be able, you're going to be able to leave here today and take some of this back to the field with you. Whether you believe it or not, we are all in sales. If you touch that customer, if you encounter that customer, if you're in touch with them in any way, you are in sales. And you will be able to use something here today. So if you hear something that you go, I don't know if he's from around here, because that ain't going to work here, then you need to listen up, because I am from around here, and I am from the South, and I do speak Southern, and I do understand who these customers are. So what I'm going to share with you can make an impactful difference. It's time to unlearn what we often know. Unlearning can be more difficult than learning sometimes. So I'm not going to change the way you do business. I just want to help you unlearn some old habits and learn some new ones. You know, somebody asked me, they said, how did you come up with this unsalesperson idea? I was speaking with someone one day. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Stan the man. Thank you, sir. And they asked me, they said, you know, what does it take to be a speaker? And I said, well, to be a good speaker, you have to be an unspeaker. And it just kind of jumped out of my mouth. And they said, what's an unspeaker? I said, well, when somebody says, here comes our next speaker, this is what I used to visualize as the next speaker. They would come on stage and say, good morning, welcome to the program. I am going to show you how to increase sales 25, 50, even 75%. And today, you will learn how to go out and be a superstar. That's what I thought of when I thought of a speaker. Anybody else kind of think that? And I said, so you got to unlearn being a speaker, and you got to learn how to just be a talker. And they said, I don't get it. I said, well, when I go on stage, I just go and talk. I don't go and speak, but they can't get up here and say, our next talker is going to be. So they call me a speaker. And I thought about it, and somebody asked me one day about being in sales. And I said, well, to be really good in sales, you got to be what? Unsales. And it just came to me. And so when we think of salespeople, we think of something different oftentimes. And really, to be good at sales, you got to be an unsales person. That's what I want to share with you this morning. How to sell more by selling less. Does that make sense? How to be more and be less at the same time. So let me ask you a quick question. A little participation is okay. Nobody's going to have a wrong answer. Why do people buy? Anybody. Why do people buy? Why does anybody buy your product or service? Anybody, quickly. fees, value, me. All of those are right answers. They like you, you're personable, you connect with them. But here's the reality. People buy, catch this, because other people are buying. Did you listen to John speak just a moment ago? Did he do a good job of kind of bringing where the market's been, where it is, and where it's going? But you know what I got out of his talk? Keywords. Keywords are what's being used to drive markets and drive customers and help them go where they want to go. He did a great job of really using the right words and showing how the media stirs the public up. So it really doesn't matter what's happening out there. What happens is in our businesses, in our offices, and us using the right words. You're going to see that over the next few minutes. Words and choice of words become very important. But people buy, plain and simple, because other people are buying. Now, oftentimes people look at me and go, well, I don't know. I don't know if that's really true or not. Okay, I'll prove to you that people buy because other people are buying. Are you ready? Why do you think people don't buy? What do you think causes people to stop buying? Fear. Because of what?
No one else wants it.
Nobody else is doing it. I don't know. Now then, how do we promote that market? When people come into your office, you don't go, oh, thank God you're here. It's Friday. You're the first customer we've seen all week. Are you going to say that? No. You got a board over here. And on that board, you're going to put sold, 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 sold. And when people come in and go, whew, we've been so busy. Are you not going to promote a busy, healthy attitude to your customers, regardless of whether you've had anybody in there or not? Of course you would. It's not about misleading people. It's just we drive our own markets. We drive the business that's there. In any crunch, in any time in history, there are still people out there selling homes. Do you get that? Even during COVID, people were selling homes. Even during 2007 and 8, when the market crashed, there were people still selling homes. They weren't selling as many, but there were people out there who had figured out the formula, and they knew how to use the right words to make their customers feel the urgency to do it now, to move in the direction. Does every investor, if you've put any money into a stock market or anything else, do you not want to be ahead of the curve? Do you not want to put money where other people are not putting money so you can catch the next big boom? That's impossible to do. Nobody knows it. That's what our customers want to do. It's up to us to give them those insights, so to speak, and help them understand why now is the right time. Why now is the time to do that. And we do it, as John did up here just a moment ago, by using the right what? Words. So, there's something called the unfactor. And if you leave and understand this, you'll begin to get a better insight into your customers. Hey, social media. The unfactor. They're unprepared, they're unimpressed, they're unfamiliar, they're uncertain of what to do, they're uneasy, something that's been said or done, and they're undecided. And so when they come in, this creates this so-called unfactor with your customers. How many of you have seen it or felt it when people come in? They just don't know the direction to go in. It basically means they're just, as simple as this, they become uncomfortable. And that's why they leave and say, we'll be back, or we want to go home and think about it. We want to go home and pray about it. I usually pull out a pillow and say, here, why don't you sleep here and sleep here on it? I used to know a guy in sales, he would get down on one knee and he says, let's pray about it right here. I couldn't do that, but he was effective. He was a very religious guy, and he used to do it with people that would say, we want to go home and pray about it. He'd take their hand and kneel right there with them. He did what he needed to do, and he sold a lot of homes, by the way. I came up in this business. I didn't come up in 50 other businesses. I came up in the business. So our job is to eliminate that so-called unfactor, that uneasiness that people get. It's easy to spot excitement. It's not easy to spot the unfactor. We have to really pay attention to to spot the unfactor. Let me show you how easy it is to spot excitement when your customers come in.
Nou, dit is dus de huiskamer. En dan komen we hier bij de slaapkamer. Met...
That's easy to spot, isn't it? We can't overlook the pain points when a customer comes in because they all have issues that they are dealing with. Everybody does from some point or another. It's not enough to just listen anymore. We have to address negatives right up front. I think the person who really gets good at understanding where the consumers are, hey, here's something you never hear anybody say from the stage. You got to watch the news. You got to know what's going on in the world. My daughter, Dad, I don't watch the news. Well, then you can't have intelligent conversations about the world with your customers. You've got to be able to talk to them about the world that's going on around them, what's swirling out there. And we have to address it. We have to help them work through their concerns, whether it's articles that have been put out, whether it's negative media, or where the markets are. We have to be on top of those. It's time to get to the root of issues when we have customers come in and get past those unproblems. If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes solving it. Today is the 55 minutes. You get 5 minutes when you go back to your business tomorrow and Monday. What I want you to impart with here is not 50 ideas. I'm going to give you a lot of ideas. I want you to leave here with just one. If you just get one idea that you say, you know, that one idea I think will change the way I deal with my customers. And if that one idea helps you sell one more home a month, would that change the business for most of you? One idea, one home. Not a ton, not so many that you go back and don't implement any of them, just one key concept or idea. Everyone has unfactors going on, those undecisivenesses. Your job is to uncover them and help them uncover them for themselves so they understand them so you can work through them. This is what most salespeople don't do today. They just want to go through and meet and greet and be happy. And do you know about our builder? And are you familiar with us? And you're familiar with who we are and what we do? How can you do any of that till you know about them? They're the only ones that are interested in anything is them. We have to know more about them before we can tell them anything about us. Number 2 is becoming an advocate. As an advocate, that means they see us differently. What qualifies you as an expert? That's the question. What qualifies you as an expert when someone walks into your office, comes into one of your model homes? It's real simple. It's called trust. Big word, not as easy to achieve as you think. Expert status and beauty, what do they have in common? The same thing. They both lie in the eye of the beholder. How they see you is all that matters. Expert status versus trusted advisor. There's a difference between the two. There's a difference between being seen as an expert and being seen as an advocate or trusted advisor. Let me give you the difference. Expert status. When they walk in your door, they look at you, they assume you're an expert. I don't care if you're with a small, medium, or large company. If they've done any advertising, and that includes street signs, billboards, radio, TV, newspaper, anything, internet, they automatically see you as an expert because that's what your advertising dollars do. They assume if you're there in that office talking and giving information, you must be an expert. Now, again, occasionally someone will disappoint us and they'll be a dumbass. Have we seen them? Yes or no? Yes. It's just my first day. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I've seen it when really they've been there 3 months, but they're still using that same old line. And so expert status is granted to you. Now, Advocacy has to be earned, and advocacy is that trust factor that comes in. You know, in Europe, I don't know how many of you have traveled Europe before, but they don't call them lawyers there, they call them advocates, because they are there to watch out and protect you. Big difference than the way we view it here. And so there's no shortcut to building that trust factor with our customers. Let me give you an example. 11 years. Who remembers this guy? Who remembers him? He was voted by Time as one of the 100 most influential people in the world. Brian Williams, a nightly broadcaster. You know why those people make millions of dollars? It's so they can sell products. Does everybody understand that? Because when they say, and now about, 2 murders on South Side, and we'll be right back after this, they leave you hanging on their trust so that that trust transfers to that product. And that's what causes those products to sell. And the better they get at building that trust in front of that camera, the more money they make, They are the world's greatest salespeople, by the way. The world's greatest, because they build the trust factors. This guy, unfortunately, in the blink of an eye, how many of you remember this? What happened? They caught him in a small fib. That's a polite way of putting it, isn't it? It destroyed his career. He can never get back on network TV as a night broadcaster, because it's not that they don't want him. It's not that he doesn't do a great job. What's the problem? The trust factor was broken. And if that's broken, who fires him? The TV station or the vendors? The vendors let him go. They say, we don't want him representing our product because he is no longer considered trustworthy. So that word becomes very important. It is so critical in our business that what we say we do, and what we do we say, and we follow through with those commitments. Number 3, forget the upsell. Oh my word. Is this everywhere in this country? We are the masters of the upsell. And when I say upsell, I'm talking about it starts where? Let's see if anybody knows the key restaurant. McDonald's. Would you like to make that a what? Biggie. Extra large. You want the big fries. You want the big drink. It's only $1 or $2 more. Oh yeah, might as well. And then it goes right on up the chain from there. Every industry does it, including this industry. I'm here to share with you a secret. If you leave with nothing today, this one might be worth every penny of time you're investing with this. Forget the upsell, because your buyers can smell the sale once it starts. They can smell it. It puts buyers on the defensive. They're used to it everywhere. And so it makes them, this is another unfactor, it makes them very uncomfortable. Let me give you an example. You go to a restaurant, and some of you may have done that last night, you may do it tonight. You go into the restaurant, it's a nice restaurant, it's a place you like going. You say, I think I'm going to have this off the menu. And the waiter or waitress looks at you and goes, I wouldn't recommend it tonight. It's not really our best. I mean, I can get it, but I'm not going to recommend it to you. And let's just say it's a $50 dish, okay? What are you going to do more than likely? No matter how much you're wanting it, you're going to say, okay. Then the waiter looks at you, or waitress, and says, may I recommend this? And it's a $39 menu item. Now, we know waiters and waitresses make the most of their income from what? Tips. So they just recommended what? Less money to spend, which means what in the tip? Less tip. Are you going to take their advice, assuming that what they recommended falls in your palate? Are you going to take their advice most of the time? Yes or no? Yes. Of course. Because they've now represented something. Now, if you picked a $50 dish and they said, I really think you need to get the lobster over here, the lobster thermidor. We're flying these babies in from South Africa, fresh. It's a different story. I'll just stick with this. You know, the lobster's $100. Your dish was $50. But they just recommended less. Do you think they just created a trust value with you? Yes, they did. Simple example. But then, as you're wrapping up your order, they say, what would you like to drink? And he says, may I recommend? Uh-oh, here's where the zinger comes in. This bottle of wine's a little more expensive, so he just made up for what he recommended. But it's good because you what now? You trust their judgment. They recommended you a less expensive dish, so when he recommends that more expensive wine, you're like, I think I'll go for it. You seem to know what you're talking about. He builds advocacy, builds trust, and is back in the game. Does that make sense? Upselling is out, downselling is in. We want to win hearts and wallets at the same time. I always recommend, I wish we had time to go into the whole strategy of downselling. Because when you can start higher and recommend less and less and less, the customers begin to love, and love you for recommending less. Is this not what he just said up here? If you listen to him intently, he gave you a game plan of success. And this is where less becomes more. Simple as that. The right moment. I love this because you'll have to really pay attention to really get it because the words are so close here, but this is simple wording. We have 2 moments in every encounter with the customer. 2 vital moments, so to speak. Moment number 1 is an opportunity. Moment number 2 is a goal. An opportunity and a goal. So, you're exactly right is an opportunity. When that customer says something and you're able to look at them and go, you're exactly right. They say something and you look at them and go, you're exactly right. When you do that, it's a compliment to them. They appreciate it. So you have to look for this opportunity to give them the compliment, and the compliment is, you're exactly right. It's an acknowledgement of understanding. It says, I've got you. You're exactly right. It's a signal that we're in agreement. Simple enough? You have to listen for the opportunity. You have to listen very carefully for it. Now, here comes the next one. That's right. This is the goal. This is what you work for. The other one is what you watch for. This one's what we work for. The customer looks at you and says, that's right. You say something, they go, that's right. That's when you know you've made the connection. That's right. Your customers have signified that you're on the same level. That's right is a signal that the connection has been made. So, the opportunity and the goal. And you have to listen for them to be able to say and give them the chance to look at you and go, that's right. That's right. The connection is made instantaneously. That right puts you on the path for trust-based influence. That's all we're here for today, is to learn how to influence and persuade. Influence the way they think in order to persuade them to spend their money with us. Not to be a closer, but to be an influencer. Fully summarize your position with your customer, and then go over their concerns, their emotions, the pros and cons. And yes, the cons are important. It says you've listened. It's not all about good. You have to outline the good and the bad with them in order to bring it together. And that sums it all up. As simple as get. And they say, that's right. You have to give them the opportunity to say, that's right. You have to pose your questions so that they look at you and go, that's right. The connection's made. Ding. You're exactly right, and that's right. Simple as it gets. Number 5, the great equalizer. The great equalizer are stories. I've only been up here for a few minutes, but have I sort of talked to you about stories? Does it sound like I'm giving you some stories after stories here? Or that I'm just coming up as a speaker in order to show you how to enhance your sales ability? The great equalizer. Wherever you are in the competition, any field, any endeavor, everywhere in the world, strategic advantage is always going to be the ability to bring stories. Rolf Jensen says the highest paid person in the first half of this century will be the storytellers. Simple as it gets, valued for his or her ability to produce dreams for public consumption. When we talk about building less for more, do you think we are instilling dreams in people that are looking to buy those homes under $300,000? We have to help them bypass the critical factor. And here's why. The greater your story, the smaller your price looks. That's as simple as it gets. The greater your story, the smaller your price looks. Great stories equal smaller prices. Smaller prices equal greater value. This doesn't just happen, folks. You have to craft this, just like I craft this talk to come up here and give you through experience. I go into sales offices. I listen to sales people. I'm in the field with it. I don't just dream it up. I listen and I craft it so that I can stand up here with you and share the ideas. You have to craft that presentation to be in front of that customer if you want to ask them for their hard-earned money. Let me give you an example. This is called magical thinking. While it may be a term you're not familiar with, you'll certainly understand it and be familiar with it in about 1 minute. Let me give you an example what magical thinking is all about, because it's up to you to create it. This is a 1968 Ford Mustang. Did anybody have one of these besides me? We got one here, a couple. Price at the time was about $3,500 in 1968. I see some heads nodding. Today, that same car would cost you about $25,000. However, key is finding one. There's the same car. Anybody got any idea who that is? Oh, Steve McQueen. See, that car was in that movie, The Bullet, and it was seen as the Bullet. But guess what happened to that car after the movie? Anybody got any ideas? You're all kind of close. You're all kind of close. It went missing for 40 years. Someone drove it off the lot, bought it, and that was it. For 40 years, the car sat until it reappeared one day, and they decided we're going to sell it. Any idea what it sold for? Any idea? You're close, but way off. Hey, just add a 3 in front of it. Just add a 3 in front of it. It went for $3.7 million. Why did that car that can be bought for about $25,000 or $30,000 go for $3.7 million? Why? It had a story with it. Now you're thinking, well, you're telling me that if I get a good story, I can get $3 million for one of my $300,000 homes? Maybe. Especially if you told them Tom Cruise was moving next door. What do you think? You see, we create magical thinking. I'm a writer. You heard him say I've written 13 books and I speak at the IBS. But people buy typewriters and do computers. If I showed you an old typewriter and said that typewriter is $50 because you want to be a writer and you want to type on an old typewriter, it's one thing. But what if I told you Ernest Hemingway typed on that typewriter? What do you think the value of that typewriter becomes? Why? It's got a story, but there's another term for it. It's called magical thinking. It's no different than the $50 typewriter sitting next to it. It's the story that's infused by the person that's selling it. The better our stories, the better the values we create. Stories are a driver of emotional values. They create and captivate. They spark the imagination for our consumers like nothing else. Stories influence. It's as simple as that. And stories close deals. People connect with us that way. When was the last time you were talking to somebody and you're listening to them and they said, to make a long story short, and did the story get any shorter? Hey, that's just sort of the precursor to, hey, hold on to your seat, because I'm about to tell you a long one. Whenever you hear somebody say, to make a long story short, we automatically know the story just got what? Longer. Stories can be very short, and they should be very short. I could take anything I've told you up here this morning and turn it into an hour story. But I can't. I can't do that. I got to get a message across to you quickly. Without stories, you just become another tree in the forest, another car on the lot, and we wonder why we're not selling what we could be selling. Which, remember, our goal here today is to sell just one more home a month. One more home a quarter. Just one. I'm not trying to send you out to sell thousands, just one extra one. If you've got a team of people, if they all are just selling one extra, where does that take you? An invisible persuader. This is the next secret of becoming an unsalesperson, is becoming an invisible persuader. So what is an invisible persuader? There's a psychological artistry to becoming an unsalesperson, and it is to tell hidden stories. Hidden stories. However, most presentations that I listen to in here are filled with facts and figures, because that's what most salespeople want to do. Facts and figures. And here's the reality. What's missing when you're given a presentation that's filled with facts and figures? Any idea? Emotions, but basically story. It's not just a story, but a well-told story. A well-told story that has a joke. Some people say, I'm not good at telling funnies. Oh, everybody's got something funny, or a zing, or a wow. Let me give you an example. Got an envelope. Would you help me for just a second? Just think of a number. Yeah, it's real simple. You're not going to have to get up here and dance or anything. Just think of a number between 1 and 10. Have you got one? Yes? That's the same one I had. You see how simple that was? We had the same. But let me ask you this. Somebody, we never go to the back. To the back, to the back, to the back. Would you do me a favor? Yes, you holding up both hands going, yes. Would you think for just a moment of someone famous? Now, not someone just famous here locally, but someone famous, that anybody would recognize their name. Just think for just a second, because I have a photograph here. I sat next to you a few minutes ago, didn't I, for breakfast? So I kind of picked up a little vibe there. So would you please just shout out the name of the person, because I have a photograph here of one person, and let's see if we're even on the same path. And again, somebody that everyone here would know. Who is it? Matthew McConaughey. What is the likelihood that I would have known that? Are you ready? One picture of Matthew McConaughey. I was ready. I kind of get vibes down here. She's thinking, oh, what if he had said Barack Obama? I was ready. I was ready, just in case. Somebody tried to get me one day and they said, Michael Jackson. I said, okay. Do you see how easy it is to infuse just a simple story in what we're doing in order to lighten the situation? Sometimes I feel like even when I'm up here, I get too serious with the message that I'm bringing, because I feel so strongly about it. When it comes to new home sales presentation, several good stories are impressive. However, a great presentation infused with the right stories told at the right time, and your influence becomes invisible. It's as simple as it gets. Your influence becomes invisible. Facts don't change minds. Friendships do. And so when we work with our customers, we're about to ask them to spend the most money that they'll ever spend in their homes and their lives. You create a bond by telling these stories. Once absorbed in a story, we begin to drop our intellectual guards. That means we begin to trust more. We are, as a species, addicted to stories. This is according to Jonathan Boxall in his book. And even when the body goes to sleep at night, it stays up all night long telling stories. What do we call those? Dreams. So see, we are addicted to this thing called stories. So the better you get at it, and you know how you get to where you tell stories? You keep a storybook. You write down, you have a conversation. I mentioned this yesterday. How many of you have been in a presentation or talking to a customer? I won't even call it a presentation. You're just talking to a customer, and you say something, and you say to yourself, damn, that was good. How many of you have had that moment where you got, I can't even believe I said that. You've got to write it down and make a difference, because what gets recorded gets rewarded. When I look at this, these are the books like at IBS. I have my own section down there because I have so many of them. And they all sell out at the IBS show. The only difference between you and me is I'm writing down every idea. Do you think this presentation changes based on the way I look at you and I see your eyes and I see whether you're laughing, you're listening, or you're not? Do you think I guide my presentation just gently through, or do you think it's just the same for everybody every time? Change or the same? Changes. See, I'm feeling you as we go through this. And I can disconnect from you in the blink of a second. I can disconnect from you almost momentarily. Now, some of you were here yesterday, and you know what I'm talking about. But how many of you feel like I'm still connected to you right now as I'm talking? Or are we disconnected? Which one do you think? Boy, I'm still here. I'm still talking to you. I'm still live and in person. Why are we disconnected? Were we connected a moment ago? Why are we not connected now? All I do is bring my eyes back down. Are we connected? You see how simple that is? I speak to one, but my talk is for all. And with customers, we have to be that way. We have to connect with them. You see how easy it is to disconnect in a split second? You know, if I could go to work for 7-Eleven, or do y'all have Publix up here? I could make them millions. Just by doing one thing, one tiny thing. I'd say, I want 50,000, and I guarantee you, you're going to get it back in a week. Well, what is it? I say, well, if I told you, then you wouldn't give me the 50,000 because you'd say that's too easy. Well, what if we give you the 50 and we don't like it? I said, you're going to like it. Here's what it would be. If I said, get your cashiers, when they hand the receipt, walk right here for just a second. You're not going to have to do anything. Just come up here just a second. When the cashiers, when you go to the store and you've passed the stuff through and they give you that receipt, I want to show you how it happens with me. They tear the receipt off and go, thank you. And they're looking at who? The next customer. They don't look at me like you were going to take that. So just act like you were the person at the cash register and you just said, you just checked me out and you just tore the receipt off and you're going to hand it to me. Let me show you what I do. So tear the receipt off and say thank you and start to look at the next customer.
Thank you.
You see what happened? He instinctively turns around to look at me like, what's wrong with this guy? He's not taking the receipt. You know why I don't take the receipt? Until they look at me one more time, and when they look at me, thank you, when they look at me, I look back at them and go, I don't even say it out loud, I just say, and they look at me and smile, and then they will say, thank you back. It's sort of my commitment. This is sort of one of those little things I do, but I swear I think I could change the destiny of the way they do business if they said, you will be fired if you don't look at the customer in the eye when you hand them the receipt and say, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Every one of you are going to walk out here today, whether you go to a 7-Eleven, whether you go to Publix, wherever you go, and you're going to watch it. Most of them are going to hand you that receipt and be looking at the next person. You're going to say, damn, he was right. And so with that, there's the only difference. I write down these things. And those things get written down. They get turned into talks. Those talks get turned into books. And then I go and speak and share them. There's the only difference. What gets recorded gets rewarded. A compelling storyteller becomes invisible. That's as simple as it gets. And here's my biggest secret for selling it with a story. because I get asked this all the time, even after a program like this. And I'll tell you my biggest secret. I was at IBS last year. I was at the bookstore, and I looked around. There were people looking at books and doing all that kind of stuff, and all of a sudden somebody screamed out, "There's John Palumbo!" Next thing I know, people were grabbing my books, asking for autographs, and it just kind of went crazy there for a minute. Now, I was a little ashamed to shout my name out like that, but but later that day, a gentleman walked up to me and he shook my hand. He said, "Hey, John, I just listened to your program and I enjoyed it." He says, "I'm a remodeler." Now, he had on t-shirt and jeans. He's probably mid-60s, mid to late 60s. Him and his wife. He said, "I'm a remodeler." And he said, "I'm a good remodeler." I said, "I believe you." And he said, "But I'm not good at closing." He said, "People like my work. I've been doing it all my life, and I'm really good at it, but I'm just not good at closing the deal." His wife was standing there next to him, and she's like this. And he said, "Is there any book here you could recommend that would make me a better closer?" I turned around, I looked at the bookshelf. It was like all the way down, back, and I said, "How about all of them?" He said, "What?" I said, "I'm just kidding. I know you're not going to buy all these books." I said, "How about I do you a favor real quick? How about I take all these books and condense them down into 2 minutes?" He said, "You could do that?" I said, "I can do it." I said, "Let me ask you a question, because what I'm about to share with you is the condensation of all these books on sales and marketing." Customer comes in. Yep. You sit down and talk to them, you give them a nice presentation, you show them your work, and they like it. Yep. When you get finished, you reach in your pocket and you pull out a card and you say, "If you got any questions, give me a call." He said, "Yep." His wife was standing behind him going, "Uh-huh. And I said, "I want you to change one simple thing with what you're doing." I said, "I want you to put that card up, and when you finish your presentation, I want you to look the customer in the what? Eye and say, 'And the next step is,'" and he just sat there and he said, "Yeah, what is it?" His wife said, "Get the money." I said, "She's right." She said, "Close the deal." I said, "Is she selling for you?" He goes, "No." I said, "She should be." He said, "Well, what's the next step?" I said, "The next step is we take a deposit. You have to tell them what the next step is." Do you know what most customers think the next step is? Do you know what they've been trained to think the next step is? We really like it. We really like you. So we want to sleep on it. We want to pray about it. We want to think about it. And we'll get back with you. That's what they've been trained to do. That's the logical next step for the customer. Do we get that? It's not them not wanting to do business with you. I said, you just need to tell them. And the next step is, I said, if you can remember those words, you'll change the way you do business. It's the same for us here today. All we've got to do when we get to the end of talking to somebody is say, "And the next step is," and explain to them the process. We go ahead and take a deposit. You go ahead and tie up this home site. You go ahead and get on our schedule for the remodeling. He said, "It's that easy?" I said, "It's easier than that easy." You're going to be amazed how many people will get their checkbook and say, "Okay, let's go ahead and do it." Simply because they trust you, simply because you're an expert, simply because you told a good story, and you just simply told them what the next step is. That is the biggest flaw in our industry, is not telling people what the next step is. This is a case of where less is more. We don't have to go into anything deep. We create more curiosity with our customers. We let their imagination do the heavy lifting. How about this one? When I say do the heavy lifting, How many of you have ever had this question asked if you've got a home for sale? Do you have anyone else looking at this home? Has anybody ever had that? What's our answer? Now we're sounding like all the other salespeople in the world when we say yes. Watch how we can let the imagination do the heavy lifting. Now, I'm going to ask somebody to help me for a second, but you're not going to have to do anything except just be normal. Might be difficult with this group. But I want you to, you just sit there for a second. I just want you to, and then whatever your mind tells you to do next, don't try to outsmart or outthink. Just go with where it goes. I want you to say, John, I really like this home, but do you have anyone else looking at it? Go. You go. Ask me that question.
John, do you have anybody else looking at this home?
Actually, we do. I just had a realtor in here. I had 2 people in earlier, both of them right on the edge. Either one of them could walk back in any moment and take this home. So if you've invested a lot of time and I really think you like it, you really are to... Stop! What are y'all thinking right now? What is the factor going on with me at this point? BS. Anybody thinking that? BS. Let's change the scenario 1 second and just do a little different. Ask me the same question one more time. And again, just go with the flow wherever your mind goes after you ask it. Go.
John, is anybody else looking at this home? Where do I sit?
So he's a little concerned because we're in a group, because he's like, what am I supposed to say? It's not what are you supposed to say. What was anybody else thinking? What was anybody else thinking? Obviously. So that's what he kind of wanted to say. He just didn't know if he was saying the right thing. That's what most people are thinking. Their minds instantly race to the worst. They don't go to the best. Oh, you're saying you don't? That's not going to happen. They're instantly going to, when I just stop and let their imagination do the heavy lifting, they instantly go, you do. And I go, I don't play that game. I don't play that game. I think it's for you, and I'd suggest you go ahead and, make your move. Now, they've said it, not me. Which is more powerful, them saying it or me saying it? Them saying it. We all love words, but trust me, this is where less is more. Facts tell, stories sell. We feel stories. Becoming the unsalesperson is about becoming self-realized. And I mean, self-realization is easy. It's the fulfillment by oneself of the possibilities of one's character and personality. Now, that's kind of a lot. And here's what it's basically saying, the perfect balance between ideal self and the real self. The best way to be different is just be yourself. You don't have to copy anything I say, anything anybody else says, anything the book says. Just be yourself. You become a collective knowledge of all of these. Authenticity becomes so important on the floor and meeting with our customers today, is to just be who you are. Melinda Gates said it best, fitting in is overrated. It's easy to say when you're worth $50 million, isn't it? Let your inner light shine is what I'm saying. I had no idea that being my authentic self could make me as rich as I've become. If I had, I'd have done it a lot earlier. 100% original is all you want to be. That's what I want you to leave here with today, to be 100% original. It's as simple as that. Forget the scripts, but definitely know your... It's as simple as it gets. We can improvise very easily. Remember this formula, because it's one that pays dividends for the good salespeople. It pays dividends for me even when I'm here. PSP. It stands for patience, silence, and pausing. It's something a lot of us are very uncomfortable with. Just stopping for a moment, letting the customer breathe, letting the customer think, letting your ideas sink in. You see me stop. If you go back and look, I stop. Sometimes because I forget where I am. He thinks I'm kidding. That's why I put these slides up. If I don't, I'll be all over the board, man, telling y'all stories from who knows where. The key is they've got to line up and be the right stories at the right time. The only path to self-realization is through authenticity. It's through authenticity. It's being the real you. When I finish, I actually have for everyone, if you want it, it's just a pocket card. I gave one yesterday in our program. It's just another pocket card. It sort of goes over the 7 bullet points that I've just covered here this morning. But here's the fun part. This is where I get to say, oh, if you buy my book, it's $30. And I always love that because I get to see if I'm a good salesperson. But I can't do it today. No $30 for the book because the HBA of South Carolina has provided those for you. When I finish here in a few minutes, you'll be able to step outside. They're going to be on a table. I'll be back there to answer any questions. I won't do them from here. I'll answer any questions and meet, greet. If you want a book, I'm glad to personalize it. But there's one for everyone in here. But I want to leave you with a message. There is a magic to becoming an unsalesperson. There is a magic. And the words that I have used today become very important. I've told a lot of stories, but they're invisible stories. They're powerful stories. And I'm going to show you how powerful some of these stories are and how invisible they become through the power of influence. Simple influence. And the ability to influence your customer's way of thinking. So with that, I'm going to do a quick demonstration of how powerful words are and how they can influence. Everybody okay with that? Would you help me for just a moment? Okay. Why don't you come on up? Give her a big hand, everybody. No, this is not going to be anything that will embarrass you or anything. You're just going to help me as we start to explore the power of influence and what we've done here today. I love Halloween. Anybody here like Halloween? Is it kind of your thing? I mean, we got Christmas, we got Valentine's Day, but for me, it's Halloween. And I love to dress differently for Halloween. No, this is not a Halloween outfit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, and I'm going to let you help me pick socks because I like to wear socks for Halloween. So I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to let you just take and put 4 across there. Lay them across. These are my Halloween makers. You're going to have to do 4 of them. 2, 3. Go ahead and put 1 down there. There you go. 4. Good enough?
Good enough.
Now, I'm going to let you do the same on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4. My Halloween socks, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to pick left or right.
Okay.
You have to tell me. Otherwise, I'm not a mind reader.
This side.
There we go. We're going to get rid of those. So those are done.
Okay.
Now, we have 4 left. Fair enough, everybody? We have 4 left. I want you to tell me, odds or evens?
Odds.
Odds. Okay, so we're going to get rid of the odds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fair enough? Out of those 2 that you've chosen, you're going to be strangely attracted to one of them. And so what I would like for you to do is just look for just a moment and see if one pulls to you. And if it does, reach out for the one that you feel strangely attracted to and pick it. Get out of here. No, I don't mean get out of here, but that's your choice.
That's my choice.
This is so crazy that, you know, when people listen, I noticed how well you were listening and intent into the presentation, so I could tell how the stories were affecting you. And so, in helping me, here's the interesting part. Stay there. You picked the sock that I need to go with my outfit today. And since that's what I'm going to use, you don't seem to be impressed. Well, that's because it's going to match the one that I came in with this morning. Thank you so much. You see how influence can take us where we need to be. Thank you so much. Give her a big hand, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. I have enjoyed my time here. I've talked to a lot of you over the last day or two. And so I just look forward to answering some questions with you. And I hope you have a great the rest of the convention. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I will be in the back when we finish. Have a great rest of your conference.